But that's
Yeah,
how I
join the
found you,
club.
though. Something
Yeah,
positive,
it's
because
true.
that's how I found you.
Misery.
It's true.
You were messaging me of why they didn't get in, and there's definitely some theories out there I've found since. But yes,
Well, we can talk about that off
Okay.
air so we don't get you in trouble, but I have some theories too. But let's get into the
Fair.
news at hand for now so we don't get ourselves in trouble. Clean slate with the committee. Nobody's watching. Nobody's watching. Clean slate with Gerry Glasco in Lubbock.
What's up, Texas Tech Red Raiders? It's Seeing Scarlet. This is Sibby yelling at you, and Shelby is next to me, not physically, but virtually going to yell at you for an hour. What's new about this episode is, how did y'all like that clip? A little clip action, giving
Guests
you a
coming
little
up.
preview
Let's
of
go.
what's to come. Yeah, we have a special guest that's going to join us later on in the show, which is really exciting because this whole episode, y'all, is softball. It is softball season in my head and in our hearts. So yeah, we'll get into that. We're going to talk a little bit about the roster, the press conference that Gerry had today. We're going to talk a lot about that with our special guest. We have Eric Lopez, who's coming to talk to us. Great guy, great follow, has been doing some really amazing work in the softball world and media for many, many years. So it was really interesting to hear his perspective and from a national level, but he talks so much about Gerry Glasco and has had a rapport, a relationship with him. So I'm excited for y'all to hear that. We're excited for y'all to hear that. And that's what we have coming up. Some portal information. I know a lot of questions about the roster are coming up, so we're going to try and give you the best of what we know now. But yeah, settle in. It's all softball with a little bit of some different spices, a little clip action in the beginning, and we got a celebrity shot later on. So grab your peanuts, right, Shelby?
Peanuts, your popcorn, whatever you got. I got it all. But yeah, it's great. As always, y'all, if you're not subscribing, this is on YouTube, please hit that button. It's free, helps us out a lot. Share this with your friends, comment something down below, what you loved about the press conference maybe, what you're excited about, what players you want them to go after in the portal, whatever you want, put it down there. We like interacting with y'all, and we'll keep giving you the information. But let's get through it. We can't give you super, super, super detailed info because this is the stage we're in, right? But a lot of questions we're getting about are the roster, who's going to be on the staff, portal visitors, all those things. So this is what we can tell you. We're going to talk a lot about what happened in that press conference earlier today in our talk with Eric. I thought it went well. I thought it was very candid. We have a clip that came after the press conference we'll show you in a minute that was typical Gerry Glasco. If you learned anything from that, you learned he's an honest guy. He's an upstanding guy, but he's going to tell you the truth about what this team needs to do to get better. And it does need more players, right? Because the state of the roster as it stands, it's very fluid. Portal and all that is still open for our team, but as it stands, we still have 9 returners, right? They're coming back from last year's team. You have some seniors in that group. You have some young players that were all Big 12 freshmen in that group. All these a mixed bag of hitters and pitchers returning. You have Sage Hoover that was out last year, hurt, and hopefully will be healthy and ready to go in that circle this year as well. There's a number of them. Y'all have heard the names. Demi Elder, our clutch queen, as a hitter. You got Aubrey Barnhart, who was hitting bombs in big moments last year. Reagan, Jennings, Logan, Holloman were the all Big 12 freshmen that I talked about. And then I could keep going. Just go look at it's on the roster right now on the website, but the names you remember from last year. That's 9. Then you have 7 coming in from the incoming class. He mentioned in his press conference he feels like hopefully they're going to be able to keep that together in full, or at least most of them. It sounded like he's been in contact with all of them, which was good to hear, and he's going to keep working on those relationships. He thinks it's a great class. He's as impressed as we are with it, and there's outfielders in that, there's infielders in that, there's pitchers in that, there's a catcher in there. In this clip you're about to hear, he talks about we need to get an experienced catcher. I think that note is complimenting the fact that we do have a really talented freshman catcher coming in, but you are going to want to pair that with an experienced catcher too. So I picked up that from this clip we're going to show. So yeah, that's kind of the state of it. And there's about 16, that means 16 people.
Dang,
you have a lot of spots to work with, right? I don't know how many people he's going to carry on his team. Typically, his teams at Louisiana were around 2022. I could see that being higher in year 1 of a coaching change. We saw that with Snyder. We had quite a few people in year 1 for him. But we'll see what he does there. But that's still a lot of spots to add. I would expect them to add 5, 6 people, maybe more if the right people come along. but we'll see what they're going to do. And I could be wrong about that, but that's just my hunch because we're only at 16 now. You need bodies out there to play. And there are some spots where we just don't have anybody on the roster that plays that position right now. So they're adding people, y'all. They're adding people that I can say with confidence. There's going to be new faces on this team. And I think I'll show you this. Let's just show this clip before we get into what we've heard about portal stuff, because he says everything we were going to say anyway about like the needs on the team, and he's very honest. And I want you to note what he says at the beginning for what his baseline is. His baseline is not a team that'll just make the postseason. So he's not saying like, yeah, we need to make the postseason. This is what we need to do. He's saying to get a team to the World Series, which is always his goal. This is what we need to do. So that means, yeah, of course, we need a lot of changes if we're going to get a team that's World Series caliber. That's what he's talking about when he says this. So keep that in mind. But we'll switch it on over here.
Let's do it.
Ba, ba, ba.
We're in the process of recruiting right now. Yeah, we want to build this roster up to a team that can get to the World Series. And our goal is to get to the World Series, no less than that. And we know we're going to have to build the roster. And we got lots of space to build the roster. It's a very small roster right now. We want to retain what we can retain off of that. At the same time, we want to bring in the pieces that can get us to the World Series this year.
What specific pieces maybe are you?
Kind of mentioned it earlier. Every piece. Pitcher. We need middle infield. We need pitching. We need an experienced catcher. We need speed. We need offensive power. It's a complete, we're going to try to upgrade in every area of the game. Every single spot. We're 29-21. And if you look specifically against Oklahoma State, Oklahoma, and Texas, those 10 games they played against those three teams, we got outscored 133-22. So it's a major rebuild as far as we're going to upgrade everything.
Okay. That's a number.
Number.
Thanks for getting that stat, Gerry.
Yeah, I mean, and he says in his press conference he's a good guy, but he's not gonna sugarcoat things, and he's a truth teller. When I never played softball, so take this for, but sports in general, I think most players appreciate a truth teller and a coach because that's how you get better. And so he's not holding back. And again, his baseline is College World Series. Those teams that he named off go to the College World Series, right? And so if you're trying to get on their level, yeah, we only scored 22 runs against them. We are going to have to upgrade. And a lot of our players graduated. And then we also lost Kaylee to the portal. So you certainly have a name those few off that were a part of the offense last year. But you got to have 9 people out there at the same time. So he does have a lot to work on there. But as you're going to hear from Eric in our interview later, and we kind of talked about it last week, he's known for recruiting, especially in the portal. And I do expect us to be very active and very soon on that. I can't get into details on the who's and the what's of it, but I have heard there's going to be visitors soon. So we'll see movement. You can't predict 18 to 22-year-olds like schedules and if they're going to announce, when they're going to announce, if they're going to commit. But I do think we're at the end of that cycle, and softball can carry into July for sure. There can be late commits, and I wouldn't be shocked to see that either. He'll keep shooting for the people he wants as long as they're on the board. And nobody's off the board for him. It doesn't matter their name. It doesn't matter. He's gonna go for who he thinks will get this team to the World Series, and just believe that in him. So that's kind of where we are with the portal. As any of those commitments come out, I think some natural names that everybody can assume, right, are some of those Louisiana players that have hit the portal. There's a couple of them that we can say. I believe Maya Davis, with her center fielder, was the Sunbelt Player of the Year. Reportedly, according to Softball America, she's in the portal as a do not contact. That doesn't mean she's coming to Texas Tech, but that does mean she has X amount of schools that she wants to talk to herself. Yeah. And you hope that we're on that list as her former coach, Lauren Allred, who led them in RBIs as a freshman. She's an infielder, I believe, first baseman, and just a DP designated hitter type. Led them in RBIs as a freshman in 2023, was hurt most of last year, so didn't play a lot, but she'd be coming back. She also is in that same boat as reportedly, again, we don't have access to the portal, but as Softball America reported, she's also a do not contact. So there's a lot of people linking those two to Texas Tech, but again, that just means they're handling their own recruiting, they're contacting people themselves. But those two feel like, yeah, keep an eye on those. There's some others. There's a catcher from Louisiana. We need a catcher. You heard him just say that, an experienced catcher that would make sense. There's a pitcher from there. There's a lot of other names though that I've heard linked to us, and I'm just not going to say them because this is new. It's a new coaching staff. I don't know how they like to do recruiting yet, and I don't know how quiet and in the dark they like to work, guys. So we're going to respect that until we know like how they want to operate, if they like that stuff to be out there, if they don't. So that's how I'm going to go with it. But I have heard there's visitors come in, and he's working, y'all, and he's going to get this team as competitive as he possibly can, even late in the process. Just believe that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, there's so many pieces to fill, and it seems like time is of the essence. Do you feel that way? Like it's a
I mean,
urgency.
I'm not going to sit here and say this is probably my first like heavy following the transfer portal cycle of Texas Tech, because we didn't have a lot of spots to work with last year, so it was kind of minimal for us to track. But I do know that sometimes softball players can like wait it out until July, especially the bigger names for sure are going to be patient on it. But we've missed like the first two really busy windows, and so we've just because of when he was hired. So I do think he's going to be active. One interesting thing that which goes into our next topic is staff, but a lot of teams, which may work to our advantage, I'm not sure, are going to be sending like their staffs to Colorado for the next 2 weeks, like usually like their whole staffs almost, because there's big tournaments going on.
Cool.
Softball, high school. There's Kaylee Wyckoff's playing up there.
Okay.
Wish you the best at Arkansas.
Miss you,
but she's
bestie.
playing up there on a college team that's playing like in the Canadian, whatever, this whole thing. Just go look it up. There's a lot of games. You can watch them on YouTube for a lot of the top prospects and stuff. So a lot of teams send like their whole staffs to Colorado for 2 weeks. We don't really have a staff right now, which we can talk about. But I do wonder if that means, well, most people aren't going to be having a lot of visits this week. So they got to go somewhere. So that's why I think you'll see some activity on Texas Tech campus right now for a lot of them that are going to stop over with us while the other places they've either been to or have to wait on. So that's kind of where we're at with that. But would expect some stuff. Hopefully we'll see some movement there. Because you do want that stuff to hopefully come together as soon as possible, so then everybody else can make the decisions they feel like they need to make, and so on and so forth. As far as our returners, you know how we feel about them, but they do obviously have life choices to make. Hopefully they're around, but they do have until about July 10th or so to portal if they so choose to. It's 30 days after a coaching change, so it's open for a couple more weeks for them. So this is a very, very fluid situation, and then when it comes to those incoming freshmen, they don't really have a timeline. They can kind of decide whenever, but it sounded like he felt pretty good about them. But again, we'll see on that. And then the last thing is staff updates.
Yep.
He said in his press conference he hopes to have his staff finalized in the next couple weeks. What I can say with pretty much confidence is it is going to be a completely new staff. I don't think there are going to be any holdovers, which is the norm. That doesn't mean anything we loved all of our assistants last year, and I know we hoped maybe we'd get lucky and one would stick around just for familiarity's sake, but it's very normal when a new coach comes in. They're going to bring in their own staff, and also the past staff may want to go get other jobs and stuff as well, and further their careers and do something else. So you never know, but if you go to the website now, I feel confident in saying that's been kind of the direction it was headed for a while, but on the Texas Tech website, the staff page is literally just Gerry Glasco right now. So I think that's fair to say. But if Roria, Bryce, Morgan, you're listening to this, appreciate everything y'all did for Texas Tech, the program the last year or two that y'all were here. Love you guys. And I think, we've talked about how much we respect Roria and how we think Morgan's up and coming. And Bryce, this is his first job as a pitching coach right out of college, basically. So I'm sure he'll land on his feet. All of them will. So, But it doesn't seem like, as of now, doesn't mean that can't change.
Okay.
But as of now, that staff page is clear, and we'll see. Okay. As far as names, we have heard things there. There's certainly ones you can assume. Maybe, I think there'll be probably at least one that follows over from Louisiana, and then there's some other connections that make a lot of sense. And out of respect, again, I know that's not fun. I know that's not fun for y'all to get information that way, that it feels like we're not telling you anything, but the information's probably out there. It's kind of common sense information, but I think we're just going to wait and let them figure it out themselves, because a lot of these coaches have current jobs and current players and things like that they're making life decisions about. So, but I would expect, there's probably one that's going to come over from Louisiana with them at least, and then he'll decide who's going to be that pitching coach, associate head coach type person that he's going to fill in. And there's certainly some names there, and as things heat up, we'll share it with you, or you might see it first when they just announce it. So we'll see how it goes. But he said in the next couple of weeks, it'll start filling in, but
Yeah.
But we'll see. He's recruiting already, though. That I would expect players to be announced before staff. Is kind of where I'm at with it. I could be wrong on that, but that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Yeah, I know it's so many moving parts, and it'll be interesting to see, what happens, and we'll keep y'all updated. So, yeah, if you're not following, follow along. But cool. Are we gonna hop into this interview now?
Yeah, well, there was other stuff we were going to talk about, but then we did this interview, and we're like, we covered it in the interview, y'all.
Yeah.
It was great. It was going so well. We just started asking him questions, and we just bounced off each other, talking about some of the topics we were going to talk about. So, enjoy this. Eric Lopez, D1 softball. We were on his podcast earlier this week, so we returned the favor, brought him on our show this week, and he does a great job, and it's really good. Great insight into your new head coach at Texas Tech, and Gerry Glasco.
What's good, Texas Tech Red Raiders? It's Sibby here. It's Shelby, and y'all may notice that we have a third person in the house on Seeing Scarlet today, and we are so stoked. This is such a fun time where we get to extend our reach and get to talk to some peers who are doing some really great work in the sports world, and that's with Eric Lopez. Eric Lopez is with us today. A host, co-host, or the host of In the Circle podcast. You're going to have to tell us all about it, which has a show twice a week, and it is all things D1 softball. And y'all know we do our best over here on Seeing Scarlet with the Texas Tech Red Raiders, and getting to see it on the national scale is really cool. So we're really excited to talk to Eric, and welcome on the show. This is the first time that we've had a peer podcaster in the house, so it's really fun to get to talk to you.
Wow, I did not know that, but it's an honor to be on.
Yeah.
It's like a home and home. Shelby was on our Monday episode, so I figured.
That's what I thought.
Here,
It's a softball thing to do. You had to extend the invite.
Wow, yeah. Okay. We were just talking about home versus away and softball and all of that good stuff, which I think is a great starting point for us. We have hired Gerry Glasco. Press conference was today. A lot of news, a lot of things to talk about. I'm trying to figure out where we would even start. Eric, could you tell us a little bit about how you got into the world of softball? I want to know that. So tell me, and then maybe other people will hear, but tell me how you got that start in softball. Where did that passion come from? It's really cool to see your work so far. So tell us.
Well, I appreciate that. I'll go to Cliff Notes version. 17 years ago, I was a student at UCF. Wanted to do play-by-play. Softball was not on the radar. I was trying to do basketball, baseball. Well, nobody wanted to broadcast softball at that time. And people were like, who's going to fill in softball? I said, I'll do it, because I had a job at night. Softball back then played double headers. So I ended up doing play-by-play for UCF softball. People liked it. They invited me back the following year, and I got hooked. So I started play-by-play UCF softball since 2007. That's how I began there. And then about 9 years ago, we're doing the selection shows, as you both were quite aware. I am bracketology. I do bracketology stuff because I've always been into that.
I left out the million things on your resume, so please continue to add into that. Bracketology, yes.
Right, because basketball, every other sports have it. Softball didn't have one at the time, so I started doing that for fun. And UCF didn't host that year, and I'm like, but nobody's talking about it. So me and my co-host Victor Anderson's like, why don't we do a podcast based on talking softball? Because nobody was talking softball on a platform like podcasting in 2015, 2016. So we started doing In the Circle, which was born around 2016. We got quickly picked up by Fast Pitch News, which was awesome. Which we worked there until this past January when we joined D1 Softball. They purchased our podcast, and we've had the national shows since. We interview coaches across the country, including Gerry Glasco, who's been on 7 straight years. So we have plenty to catch up.
Going for eight.
Although big competition, but it's been a lot of fun. So that's how I got into softball. I covered the Big 12 tournament this past year for D1 softball. So that relationship's been off to a fantastic start. So I do a little bracketology. I do a little writing. The podcast I mentioned twice a week. It's kind of like a sports talk version of softball. And it's the same philosophy that you both have when you do your shows, to talk about the Texas Tech athletics that nobody talks about. I think that's kind of where we're both kind of connected right away. We both have similar passions for things that maybe don't get covered as much as we think it should. And that's kind of how the In the Circle podcast started. Victor Anderson does a great job producing it and co-hosting it. So I wear a lot of hats, play-by-play, hosting podcasts, covering stuff, scoops and everything. And like this particular story here with Gerry going to Lubbock, which has definitely caught everybody off guard in the softball world.
Yeah,
No
no
kidding.
doubt. Yeah. Eric does a great job. Go follow him on all the places. When y'all heard us all year talking about Texas Tech being in the hunt for the pro season, that's where we were getting our information. Not that he led us astray. He was correct. The committee was wrong.
Thank
But
you.
Eric was correct
you.
all year long about us being in there and should have been in there, especially at the end. But he knows his stuff, so definitely give him a follow, and he'll keep you updated on
I'm still
Texas
bitter
Tech and
about
all.
that. I'm still very, not that, of course, you're more bitter about it. But that's how I
join the
found you,
club.
though. Something positive.
Yeah, it's
That's
true.
how I found
Misery.
you.
It's true.
You were messaging me of why they didn't get in, and there's definitely some theories out there I've found since. But yes.
Well, we can talk
Oh,
about that
okay.
off air, so we don't get you in trouble. But I have some theories too. But let's get into the news at hand for now, so we don't get ourselves in trouble. Clean slate with the committee. Nobody's watching. Watching. Clean slate with Gerry Glasco in Lubbock. What was, I was on your show earlier this week, and you kind of asked for our perspective as Texas Tech fans. But you cover national media, also Big 12 softball, being with UCF. What was your honest reaction? Feel free to be honest when you're like, you heard Gerry Glasgo's going to Lubbock. What were your actual thoughts?
So I was recording an interview when that started leaking, which of course, right? Isn't that always happen to us when we're recording
really
interviews?
is.
It's
Always.
like nobody ever reaches out when we've got nothing to do. It's always when we're in the middle of a show or on a broadcast. So I'm recording an interview that day, and I get a message because at that point, and you've addressed this on your show, so I can confirm that Rodney DeLong was the name that everybody kept bringing up for North Texas to be the next head coach at Texas Tech. He was in the mix the last time the job was open. That was the name that was floated in Kansas City, where there was a big travel tournament going on. And for people that don't know, my phone blows up during this time of year from a lot of people in softball. Like, hey, did you hear about this and this? Hey, so-and-so is going, So it's a lot of gossip. That's why I kind of sympathize with the Wojs and the Schefters of the world. I can't imagine, because their phone, they do that every day of their lives. I don't like to do that every day. We have Justin McLeod, who's the best at it on D1 softball. He breaks all this new stuff. So
It's a good job.
Up until Wednesday, everybody was thinking it's Rodney DeLong. But we knew there was somebody else. We knew there was somebody else because we heard that somebody else was in there. We're trying to figure out who it is. And then when Gerry's name got mentioned to me on the phone, I'm like, wait, what? And it was from somebody that's very reliable. The way you probably have the same boat. You have sources that you trust that don't mess with you. Like, you don't want that person that's trying to get you like 50%
They're
wrong.
loyal.
Right.
They're loyal.
This person wouldn't be messing with you. So you're like, wow, I'm going to take this seriously. So I made some messages. I'm like, have you heard about this? To certain people, like, oh, yeah, we heard about it. I'm like, what? And then next thing you know, it just started to spin. And then we got a person from Louisiana who reported it on his paper that we had on the show, the same show that Shelby was on. And he verified that Gerry had a decision till Thursday to make the decision. Then he made the decision. But we were floored because his name's always up for jobs. Anytime an SEC job's open, you just anticipate it. And the weird thing about this, his name didn't pop up right away until the very end, which credit to Texas Tech and those people, whoever kept it hush, because it was not really well known in the softball circles until Wednesday, really, when it started picking up. By then, at that point, it sounded like it was pretty much a done deal, although Gerry has mentioned that he didn't make that decision till Thursday morning. But I think in his mind when he went to sleep, he was taking the job. So it caught people off guard. Not that he left Louisiana. I think everybody assumed he would leave Louisiana. In fact, I was told during the season he would probably leave for a Power 4 job at some point because of the way the landscape is going in college athletics, that you'd rather be in a power conference versus being at a mid-major school, especially with the financial backing, which he actually touched on in his presser. But with Texas Tech, I think a lot of people were definitely caught off guard that Texas Tech was the place because his name hadn't floated there until Wednesday.
It's fair. It's fair.
So that wasn't even a blip on your radar. And I think it's so interesting, too, to think about with coaching changes in general that's happening across the nation in various sports, right? We've seen a lot, especially in the state of Texas recently. Have you, how does this feel compared to other coaches who have left jobs, taken new jobs. Does it feel like a unique time for you, Eric, like in the coaching realm of things, or is this the status quo? This is business as usual. You're used to this, like,
Sure.
because it kind of feels like a whirlwind for me, but I don't know if this is what's normal.
I think it's both. This is part of the norm in the off season. There's just coaching moves, coaching carousel moves. But what was unique about this is this was not, quote, this one caught people off guard, which is harder to do nowadays. Like, there's been a lot of head coaching moves. Ashley Chastain, for example, going to Charlotte to South Carolina. Nobody was surprised. Once that job opened, everybody knew it was her job. It was her alma mater. That's very textbook. So a lot of times there's a lot of textbook hires. What's unique about this is really Texas Tech has been fascinating this whole offseason because this whole thing only starts because Craig Snyder leaves to come to Tennessee to be the hitting coach, which caught some people off guard. Just because of why would you leave a power conference job to be an SEC assistant? And I think him and Stephanie Sanders, that's his wife now, I think it's self-explanatory why that move was made. I don't think it was anything about, anything Texas Tech did wrong. It's just, hey, my wife and I am getting married. I want to both coach in the same, and Tennessee provides that with Karen Weekly. But I think that, that's why this was such a huge hire for Kirby Hocutt. Because if he doesn't hit a home run here, people are like, oh, it's Texas Tech. Is that really that great of a job? You got coaches leaving for assistant jobs. And, we're not going to get into all the recent history that, stuff that you've had, but it's like a short-term coaching list. But then when you get Gerry Glasco, who's as respected as it gets in the sport, people open their eyes. And now that we've had days to reflect, I mean, right now, I would tell you, and I'm not saying this because I'm on this show, I would say this even if I wasn't, we usually do a coaching carousel rankings of the top moves of the offseason. This is the number one coaching move of the offseason. Texas Tech is number one.
A win is a win. A win is a win.
To land Gerry Glasco is a game changer, I think, for the program.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
Love that. Thank you for giving us that hype. Honestly, that was nice. But that's a big statement. I trust you, loyal, right? Like we loyal to each other.
You talked about you say it's the best hire in your opinion. What do you think Texas Tech fans that maybe aren't as familiar, if they have been sleeping under a rock or have missed our last couple episodes when we've been talking about him, familiar with Gerry Glasco, what should Texas Tech fans expect from him as a head coach from you that has covered him over the years?
A great offense. So you're not going to have to worry about the offense dropping off. I know Craig Snyder, who did a fantastic job. Craig did a fantastic job this 2 seasons. Yeah, I haven't noticed warming up there. But yeah, Craig has done a great job with the offense. That will continue. Gerry is a great offensive mind. He will bring talent, offensive bats who are athletic. I think that's going to be not a question there. I think you'll see an upgrade on the pitching side. It'll be interesting to see who he ends up bringing in as a pitching coach. I think that's the big question everybody's wondering about. But he is a winner. He's got to Louisiana. First of all, he got to the World Series as an assistant at Texas A&M. He's an assistant in the World Series at Georgia. He learned under legendary Lou Harris Champer. He recruits as well as anybody. He is a relentless from the transfer portal. He was ahead of the game when the transfer portal entered the picture. Some coaches were hesitant about it. He jumped 2 feet in, like we're going all in. Like he didn't waste. Let me just give me the players. And I think if you saw the press conference, he mentioned that he was asked about the Oklahoma win, and he said all the credits to the players. I didn't do a good job through the first 21 games. He is very humble. To a detriment sometimes. He is the hardest person himself. He will knock himself. He will make fun of himself. He's very human from that standpoint. He's the type of guy that you can come up to and he'll talk to you for a few minutes and say hello. I think Texas Tech fans will relate to him. I think you're going to hit it off with him because he doesn't think that he's that big of a deal. That's what's so amazing about it. With the success he's had, he thinks he's just lucky to have a job and be doing this. He's jolly, but he's a super competitive person, and he will have his team prepared. Like I said, he's won consistently at Louisiana. They gave him that opportunity. When he took over Louisiana, that program was in shambles with Mike Lateef, and there was a lot of off-field issues, drama, where half the fan base was split on it, and he took that rabid fan base, and he won them over, and he kind of calmed the waters, and he won quickly, and he got to the super regionals 2 years ago there, and he's gotten to the region. And that's the thing that's going to change now at Texas Tech. You heard him in the presser. His expectations is to make the regionals every year, not just every so often, which has been kind of the story. Would you both agree with Texas Tech? You have these little blimps runs.
Yeah, we've only made it six. We've only made it 6 times, I think, in our history.
Yeah.
So. That's wild, 6 times. But that's good for now. But I think that's going to change now with Gerry, who's going to try to raise the bar. And I thought what was interesting to hit what he said is he wants to create his own legacy here. Whereas, Louisiana, you had a vet Gerard, you had, so much legacy before him. And he's right about this. If he can turn this program to a consistent winner, then his legacy only grows there in Lubbock. And I think what we've seen with the other sports is Texas Tech, as you both very well know, covering it. I think a lot of the other sports have proven you can win big, right? Men's basketball, a lot of people didn't think they could win big in basketball until they actually got there to the Final Four, right? And I think that's kind of the same boat here in softball. And I think Gerry visions that. I think Gerry feels he's got the support, as we'll get into, I'm sure, the backing from the school. But it's an exciting time for a Texas Tech softball fan, I think, from a consistent standpoint.
That's good to hear. I think what I've loved about this experience when seeing Scarlett is Shelby showing me the world of press conferences and pressers and getting to know a little bit more from a coach in that perspective. And so when you talk about the presser that he did with Texas Tech, y'all, if you haven't seen it yet, it's up on YouTube. It's a good listen. And you talk about how he has he'll reflect on himself and hold himself accountable, and we heard stories like that and some things that we've heard before. But what is something interesting or like that kind of caught you maybe not off guard, but what surprised you, something that you took away from his press conference that was unique?
I think the fact that he identified West Texas, how often he's been to West Texas, and that he liked that.
He said Post, Snyder. I was like, okay, that's West Texas. Yeah.
I heard he was a big quail hunter.
He is. If you ever get him on the show, first of all, just make sure you have over an hour of it, like free up over an hour, because he's not going to give you short answers.
We can handle that.
Okay, that's number one. But he's got a unique backstory away from softball, which I'll let you kind of find out when you talk to him. Like you mentioned, he's a quail hunter. He didn't get into softball until 2008 when Lou Harris Champer gave him an opportunity because he was in the travel ball scene, with his daughter, Jerry Ann, the late Jerry Ann, and so forth. But what struck me is he talked about where the game is going today in college athletics, the name, image, likeness. I think he feels very confident that Texas Tech could, have that. The area, it sounded to me that he's going to definitely hard recruit locally, which is something you brought up, Shelby, when you were on my podcast about how much talent. Real. You both have mentioned this on your show, that there's untapped talent there that people are not aware of. And it sounds like Gerry's very aware of from that standpoint. And I think the fact that he wants to have his own legacy there, he's going to coach there a while. Because I think somebody may have asked him about, coaching long-term there and things like that. And trust me, my interpretation is this will be his last head coaching job before he retires. And I think he has some plans that I think long-term could benefit Texas Tech. But it seems to me they're all on the same page. And I think that's a big plus for Texas Tech, because I'll defer to you two. It seems like in the past, Texas Tech and softball were not on the same page for various reasons.
That's a good point.
Yeah, we'll just leave it there. I think they were trying. I think they were trying to be. I don't think there was ever any ill intent behind it.
It just wasn't working out.
They definitely went about this hire. And again, we talked about that on your show. Snyder was a great hire as well. We talked about why he left. That just life happens with those things, and we get it. But this one, there was some clear okay, we're refusing to let this momentum go back. And I do think that our fan base was a little concerned that they would just be like, well, we tried. It didn't work. We tried to go in on softball and it didn't work. But it was clear because they put a committee together with this one. It's the first time we ever had a committee, and they really went after it. So, I loved the things that you pointed out from the press conference as well. And I think the big thing is something our fans really want to see and want to have in softball. You talked about that, maybe being on the same page, is more just the trust factor. Is they feel like they fall in love with the program and then it's ripped out from under them. So one, I think we all agree, it sounds like based on his press conference, he plans for this to be his final job and to build it to where it can be and move on. But also, I think the answer to this is yes, based on what you said. But what do you think are his abilities as far as like bringing that alumni base together, bringing that history back? Because while we don't have a lengthy history, that is something I've talked to a lot of alumni and even alumni parents over the last few weeks during all this, and something they really, really want is like for there to be more of that, kind of like those diamond clubs that other teams have, and like pictures of other like our best players around the ballpark and things like that, where you don't really like know that they exist publicly. They're like in the training facilities and stuff. But do you feel like that's something he'll be able to do, is bring that alumni base back in and get everybody integrated in it? Is that something that they did a lot at Louisiana?
Well, they have already had that built in. So that's a little different in that he kind of walked into that. It's a little different. I'm always interested in this scene when you're trying to build it and you're trying to do it with a coach that didn't play, that player didn't play for that coach. There's always that awkwardness of trying to get to know the coach. The one thing I will say, though, Louisiana prepared him in a lot of ways for that, because he used to do like a lot of media availabilities, because softball's a big deal in Lafayette, Louisiana. Like it's easily the number 2 sport behind only football. So he got accustomed to doing a lot of interviews. So he understands those responsibilities. I would expect him to be involved. If you guys do like coaches tour, those type of things where you go around cities and recruit, have all these different coaches from different sports to visit.
I don't know if
I would expect him to be a factor into that. The thing about him, though, is he literally spends a ton of time recruiting and focus on softball. So he's not the social.
We love that. We love that.
He is not a guy that's just going to hang out at a night, a club there, eat dinner at a nightly festivities on a consistent basis. He's not, he's got his deal. But yeah, I think he will, because again, if you come to see him, he will talk to you. He will not act like he's this big deal or whatever. He will come to you. And if anything, I think he will pick that person's brain and ask them about the program. I think it'll be the other way around. He's like, what can I do? And
sounds
pick
about
that
right.
It seems like that, yeah.
And I think that's the significance. And, the other thing I got from that presser is, and you mentioned this, Shelby, the competition. I think he's excited to be in the Big 12, which is, to me, the number 2 conference in the sport. The competition, it's a new challenge. I get a sense too, not that he was not motivated at Louisiana, but he accomplished, I think, everything he could do at Louisiana. In this day and age, it's hard to get to the World Series from Louisiana. Cajun fans don't want to hear that. But this ain't 1999 or 2000 like it was, where they could get to the World Series on a frequent basis. I think he looks at the landscapes like, man, if I could get, baseball because he's a big baseball guy. You'll see him at baseball games. If Texas Tech can get to the World Series in baseball, why can't we get here in softball? He probably asked that question during this process. Like, why have you guys done better? Like, what am I missing here?
Deal?
Yeah, because
good question. We agree. And Tim Tadlock, the baseball coach, was at the press conference, and there's a great picture of them two together, and that's like the meeting of the minds. Those have to be, need to go look it up, actually. That'd be a great tweet. Those have to be 2 of the most winningest coaches in each of their sports in college, active college baseball and softball right now. And we were kind of in a like that with baseball before Tadlock came in, and then we were at 4 of 6 College World Series, like 4 in 6 years. Like it's so we hear all the chirping and all the things you can't win in Lubbock, you can't recruit to Lubbock, but I don't know why that narrative keeps being said, because it keeps being proven wrong with every sport. So it sounds like you agree that recruiting wise, and we'll see, but that's kind of his reputation, that he's gonna go out and prove that wrong and be like, you can win in Lubbock, I can win anywhere.
Yes, I think that's his mindset. And from what I was told, he was blown away by the presentation from Texas Tech. Like,
Good.
The people involved did a great job, because I think it was one of those things that by the end of it, he's like, I can't pass this up. Like, and I had heard, like I said, I mentioned earlier, I had heard during the year that probably he was going to move on to a Power 4 conference school within if not this year, definitely next year. The clock's ticking. And I do wonder, I think fortune kind of broke your way in that regard. For example, your job open. For example, like another job in the Big 12 wasn't open. What if somebody else was open? So, and I think that's why Texas Tech was aggressive and why this went so quick. They wanted to grab him before something else popped up. And that's
because
right.
I think there is something we've talked about, and we won't get into that because that's unfair to the school. But I think there is one that people are speculating on in the Big 12 that would make a lot of sense for him. And I kind of agree with you, because we talked about on your show, like we kind of heard about this on Saturday, Sunday, but Texas Tech was Loctite quiet about it. Nothing was coming from them, and I think they were smart to do that for that reason.
And to keep
it was small window.
And to keep it quiet for that long, like I know you got some hints about it and stuff like that, and it started to leak out. But in softball circles, to keep a name, out of it, especially in Gerry's case, that's impressive because in past years we would hear about Gerry and he was on campus at this job, right? So that credit to everybody, and I think that probably impressed them too that they were able to keep it quiet because sometimes that'll impress an employee. Like, wow, you guys are really handling this very well. So I think you won him over once that that first interaction occurred, and he saw all the things that you provided to support the program. I think he's like, this is it. This is the one.
Yeah, a home run right here. Hopefully. I know. You see that? So it sounds like Texas Tech recruited really well, and we talked a little bit about recruiting with Gerry, and I'm curious from your perspective, Eric, maybe a little bit out, away from Texas Tech. So just in general, when you see like coaches who can recruit really well, what is it that they have, or what is it that these athletes are getting from these interactions or these coaches and makes them great recruiters? What do you think it is?
Well, number one, think about what he said in the press conference about the Oklahoma win. And who did he give the credit to? The players.
Yeah.
He didn't give that story where he tells his players, hey, it was my fault. You didn't lose this game. I lost this game. I think players like that, right? Like, he's a player's coach from that standpoint where he's got your back. He's not going to throw a player under their bus in public. He's not going to be all high mighty. He's not perfect, but he's the type that will give the players credit before he gives himself credit. And he's the first. I think Texas Tech fans will appreciate this. He will not sugarcoat it. If things don't go well a certain weekend, he will tell you, hey, we stunk. I was terrible. like you don't have to worry about like jumping on him. He'll jump on himself. And I think that's he's honest, and he mentioned it. He's sometimes too honest, too blunt.
Yeah, he said that. Yeah,
and I think players kind of respond to that. And I think if you're a hitter, I mean, if you look it up, if you have a chance, look, he's got an impressive coaching tree as far as people that have modeled their hitting styles. Tony Baldwin at Georgia learned from Gerry Glasco offensively. Georgia's one of the best offenses in the country. Laura Trout, who's at Illinois. Elisa Goler's on the U.S. national team staff this year. He's got all these people. When you ask all these coaches, who did you learn your offensive system or style? Oh, Gerry Glasco played for them. Kristen Sandberg's another one. That he is one of those people. When you do a list of the top, let's say, 10 hitting minds in the sport, his name will be on that list. And what he has learned during his time at Louisiana is to balance that out with the pitching and the defense and surround him. He lets his coaches coach from that standpoint as far as the pitching is concerned, which is why I think that's a fascinating move, whatever decision he decides to go there. But he's a people's guy. He's really he's a humbled guy. He's just he generally believes he's fortunate to be where he's at in life. Softball was not in the picture until 2008, kind of like me. It was kind of a fluke. That's why him and I have always hit it off, because we're both kind of, wow, can you believe we're doing this stuff 16 whatever years later? And he's the type of guy that I think the fans will relate to. And he'll talk to you to your ears off. Like, he will tell you every story, maybe even stories you weren't expecting him to tell you. He will tell you everything about the team. And that's the thing. When you get him on, he is very detailed about his team. And he will be blunt about, hey, I think we're really good at this and this, but I think we're not really good at this right now. We need to get better at this. Like, how many I've interviewed him for 7 years. Every year he would always nitpick his roster. Like, well, I don't think we're very good right now defensively. We got to get better if we want to get to that next level. I mean, he would mock himself because he couldn't get out of a regional, which is like not something you would see a coach do. Like, what coach would mock themselves? Oh, we can't get out of a region. I'm going to, but he does that. And so that's why I think I know I'm going long-winded, but that is why players relate to him, because they can relate to that. It's not like, it's their show. I'm going to have an opportunity to shine under his umbrella.
I love that. We said in this coaching search that this program, and obviously he is a program leader and a name, but we said, like, this program is about the players, and they just need somebody that believes in them and that sees that. And it feels like he's the exact coach that does that. He's like, hey, this is about you. I'm here to help you, but you're the ones on the field. You're the ones that are going to do it. And if it messes up, I'll take it on me and we'll figure it out. But that's what I got from his press conference and things that you've said and other people have said. And
he's very
I do
smart.
think that West Texas will love that.
And he's very smart. He plays this like, oh, shucks, I'm not the smartest guy. Don't believe that. That's an act.
Yeah.
He is ahead of the curve. I told you he was ahead of the curve on the transfer portal before any other person was. And he's ahead of the curve, I would argue, right now with college athletics. I think he saw the vision where this is headed.
It's true.
And that's why he's made this move. And I think Texas Tech's going to benefit from it.
I have a bit of a question to put you on the spot here. So answer it as best you can. I realize the roster is far from what it's going to be by the time the season gets here. But just knowing what you know of him and what you know of our current state of our roster, we'll start with two questions. But the first one, where do you think like this time next year we're going to be like, this is what happened with Gerry Glasco and Texas Tech this past year in year one? What are your expectations? You're not being held to it because, again, the roster is absolutely only has 16 players on it right now, and it's hard to predict. But just what you know of him and his reputation.
I think he will get some additions from the transfer portal. Probably some players from Louisiana. Let's just be honest about it. That's what I mentioned the relationship.
Realistic.
You're probably gonna get some talented players. Shelby's more on top of this stuff than I am, so I'll let her divulge on that stuff as y'all will deal with that. But
into it,
yeah, I think he will add some pieces. The biggest question will be, what does he have in the circle? Can he land some pitching either in the portal or is he inheriting any quality pitching?
Sage Hoover. Sorry, we're big Sage Hoover fans.
I found that out in the last 5. I think that's the big question. If he can find pitching either in the portal or within, then I don't see a reason. He mentioned he expects to make the regionals next year. I'm not going to doubt him because he did that at Louisiana, and that roster was in shambles when he took over. I wouldn't shock me if he got him in the mix to make the regionals, kind of like where Craig was this year.
I was about to say, we should have made it this year, and we didn't have much pitching because they were all hurt, too. So
right, and the other factor, and nobody asked him, but obviously there's no Oklahoma, Texas in the Big 12 anymore. You do have Arizona State, Utah, but there's some more winnable games there. So I think Texas Tech, you look at the Big 12 next year, I think Oklahoma State will be the favorite. I think Arizona will be right at the top. Baylor seems to retool a little bit. Utah lost a lot. It's going to be a young league. UCF's going to be very young. I think BYU lost one of their best players to Oklahoma. That hurts them. So I think there's an opportunity for Texas Tech to be in that middle of the pack because I think they're going to score. The one thing I'm confident is you're going to score some runs, just like you did this past year. You're going to play some wild 12-8 games, and it might come down to how many of those games you win versus you come up on the short end. But I think you'll be in the mix for the regionals. I think that highly of him, that he can build a roster that quickly, especially offensively. He'll give his team a chance to play offensively. I don't know what your non-conference schedule will look like, but I think that's going to be the key question is, does he land a pitcher in the portal? Or if not, what is he inheriting in the circle? Is it good enough to compete in the Big 12? That's the big question I have.
Yeah, I think he'll be adding some, but we do believe in some of them that are here too. So I think they'll. Yeah. But yeah, I would expect he's going to be working there. So we'll see.
I got a follow up of that question, and we talk about this might be Gerry's last head coaching job. I feel like I'm not going to say that for him, but if that is the reality, when he's leaving Texas Tech, what do you think it's going to be like? What do you think the softball program could be like after 5 years, 6 years?
I really believe, and again, I like Gerry. I've covered Gerry. I covered Gerry in the Pro League. He's won a championship in the Pro League. He coached Monica Abbott. I don't know if you know that.
Three of them, right?
Yeah, 1 of 3. He's won 3 pro titles, one with Monica Abbott. I think he coached Kat Osterman as well, I want to say. I don't quote me. So he's coached the best of the best. I would think by the time his run is at Texas Tech is over, it's similar to what baseball, Ted Tedlock built at baseball. Now, I don't know if that necessarily means you're going to Oklahoma City. I'm not saying that, but I definitely think you're going to be a much more contender as far as to get to the super regionals and Oklahoma
that's fair.
City. I think that's to be in the mix every year, not just, hey, you had a nice 2-year run and then you didn't make it for another 5. Like, it's been interesting with Texas Tech. I feel awkward in a way because UCF's first ever head coach was Renee Lors Gillespie, who left Texas Tech back after the 99 season to build the UCF program from scratch. So you've always had this like coaching thing.
It's in the soil.
There. So I guess that's why I like you all, though, because you guys gave us Coach Gillespie, who obviously hired me to be the broadcast. So this was all meant to be. I feel like this was all to us to connect. But I think Gerry, and again, if his vision, like his plan actually happens, which I have an idea what his plan is, then I think you're going to be a successful softball program for the next decade or so, even beyond after he leaves. I think if anything, I think his legacy will grow after he leaves because I think the person after him will benefit from what he does here. Whether he gets to an Oklahoma City or not, I don't know. It's hard to predict that. But the next coach, this job, I think will be a much, much better job. After
you can just go ahead and say it, so then we can clip it in 5 years and make you look like a genius. Like, man, Eric called this 5 years ago. I agree. I think all the factors are there, but you can't predict. Like, you don't know, like how
you can't predict college landscape.
Things are going to happen. You just can't. But
one thing I will say this:
pieces.
Texas Tech, starting now, will be a major player in the transfer portal every year. Before, right? Because let's be honest, you weren't really ever in the mix for a marquee player ad. No, now with Gerry, you are, and I think you're gonna, and that's gonna be the next surprise. Is I think you'll get some players in the coming years, maybe this year, where you're like, whoa, they got that player to go there. That's what's the next.
Okay, that'll be our next episode.
No comment, but I'm excited for it. That's all I'm gonna say.
I love it. Yeah. It's so helpful to hear your perspective, Eric. And I think when we're thinking of the upcoming season, it seems too far away at this point with all this energy and excitement. What are you looking forward to the most for this upcoming softball season?
Well, it's the new era of Big 12 with Arizona State, Utah. I got to go to the Big 12 tournament this past year. It was awesome. It was a blast. I had a great time.
Awesome.
The Big 12 really took care of us. We did some live shows from there. So I'll get to see Gerry there in Oklahoma City. I don't know if I'll see him during the season, but I'll see him in Oklahoma City for the Big 12 tournament, which I'll invite both of you. You should come out to OKC.
I'm saying, let's
At some
go.
point.
Yeah, we'll meet up.
But I'm looking forward to seeing what the new landscape will look like in softball with Oklahoma and Texas and the SEC. How does that Big 12, do we get more teams into the tournament because of that? I think we'll be a more wide open Big 12. I think that's something that I'm looking forward to seeing. Obviously, the big story left in the offseason is where's Najee Kennedy end up in. That's obviously a big game changer for whoever, wherever she ends up going from a player
standpoint. Come on to love
it,
Naja. Come on to love it.
I mean,
if anybody can pull
dream
it
for
off.
it.
I mean,
Dream for it. Anybody can pull it off.
I believe and believe.
Put it this way.
Anyone can pull it off.
Here's the difference, right? If you would have brought this up, with all due respect to Craig and previous Texas Tech coaches, if you would have told me that, I'll be like, oh, get out. All right, you guys are being.
Yeah.
But with him, I'm not putting anything past that guy. So that's the difference.
Fool me once.
Right. So I'm looking forward to seeing how the new landscape conferences and how it looks and how it impacts certain teams and the programs. I think the Big 12, I thought it was an exciting year this past year. Went on record, as you brought up early. I thought it should have been a 6-bid league, maybe 7. You guys got hosed a little bit. I'm not just saying that. That was the one I missed.
Thank you.
I went 63 out of 64, and I missed that one.
They ruined your bracket.
I know.
Dang. That's messed up. That crosses the line now.
It's unacceptable.
And I feel bad. I felt bad for those because like 10 seniors and Craig and.
Don't even get me started. We
tough.
cried we didn't actually cry, but I felt like crying. Yeah, it was tough.
Understandable. But I think the good news now is with Gerry, maybe this year you might still be on the bubble, but I think as Gerry builds this up, you'll be a clear NCAA tournament team. That part I am the most confident in, that you will not have to sweat out a selection Sunday, whether you're in or out too often. I think you'll be in more times than not.
It's more we're sweating if we're going to host or not. You know what I mean?
Maybe. That could be. That was his goal in Louisiana. He got hosed 2 years ago, still won the regional in Baton Rouge, and then he hosted this year. So that's a good goal. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Wow.
All right, Eric, we could talk to you for a lot longer. I can tell this was awesome, and I appreciate all the insight, but we don't want to keep you on here forever, but we'll definitely have you back on as well. We'll keep this home and home series going.
I like it.
You call us over there, we'll bring you on, let fans get your reaction throughout the year to different stuff. Hopefully next year around bracketology season, we can have you on predicting that we're going to be a host,
Oh.
Hopefully you'll be happy. Hopefully you'll be happy with me then and not mad.
Well,
True.
we were happy with you, Eric. You
Thank
did
you.
your job well. It was
you.
not your fault. You tried to
did.
tried to lead them in the right direction, and they just forgot us. I'm convinced that they just like forgot that we were even an option. They're like, oh, oops. But that's kind of where we're at. But yeah, we appreciate it. Let everybody know where they can follow you and your podcast
Sure.
one more time, so they can make sure they check it out because it's great stuff.
Thank you. Eric Lopez Elo on all your social media platforms. That's where I wear a lot of hats. Softball is my main hat. I host In the Circle podcast on In the Circle SB on social media and on the YouTube channel. It's me and Victor Anderson. We hit up a lot of topics. We interview all the coaches around the sport, broadcasters, media people like yourselves. We cover it all angles. And then we're on D1 Softball. Make sure you follow D1 Softball. We have a transfer tracker there. As well as Coaching Carousel, which I know you both have seen. So we cover the all ins and outs of softball. And then I do some UCF broadcast on ESPN Plus for softball as well and other sports, and cover other sports on the side when softball is not slows down. Whenever that happens. I don't know when that happens anymore.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It never is what we've learned.
Every time we think and we wake up the next day, but here we are.
It's trouble. Well, thank you so much, Eric. It's been so nice. Usually when we wrap up these type of situations, we have our guests do a little Rec'em guns. Would you do a Rec'em with us?
Oh, all right. I'm at Rec'em.
Let's go.
Did I nail it? Did I nail it?
Take it.
I nailed it.
You
nailed
are so
it.
good.
You nailed it.
You're
You nailed
in
it.
the club. You're in the
We
club.
won't show UCF, so it's fine. They'll never see this.
Thank you so much, Eric. Take care.
Anytime, ladies. Always an honor to be on your show. Keep up the great work.